welcome to another video. And today is the day because this year is 2023 and it is time to review some of my favorite Marvel movies of all time and completely sets up that culminates the 11th year of this epic saga and some of the best storytelling leading up to this epic moment with the release of Avengers Endgame. I was incredibly excited for this movie. I had been following the Marvel Cinematic Universe since the first Iron Man movie and I had seen every movie in the franchise leading up to this movie. I was invested in the characters, the story, and the world that the MCU had created. I knew that Endgame was going to be a main event, a big movie, and I was eager to see how it all wrapped up. After seeing it in theaters back in 2019, I was not disappointed. Endgame was an epic conclusion to the MCU Phase 3, or I would say the epic conclusion to the Marvel Cinematic Universe Infinity Saga. It was a satisfying culmination of 11 years of storytelling, and it delivered on all of the promises that it had made. The action was incredible, the humor was on point, and the emotional moments that were truly powerful. I left the theater feeling satisfied and fulfilled. What makes it the epic conclusion? There are a few things that makes this movie the epic conclusion to the franchise. First, the movie is incredibly satisfying for fans of the franchise. It ties up all of the loose ends from previous movies, and it gives closure to the characters that we have come to love from the first. Second, the movie is a visual spectacle. The action sequences are incredibly well choreographed, and the special effects are top-notch, even though the action in this movie is not better than the action sequences in Infinity War. And third, the movie is emotionally resonant. It has some truly powerful moments that will stay with you long after you have seen the movie. The storytelling is a masterclass. The movie is well paced, the characters were well developed, and the plot is engaging. The Russo brothers who directed the movie, of course the ones who directed Infinity War, did a masterful job of juggling so many different characters and storylines. They also did the great job of balancing the humor and the drama. And the action are one of the best that I have ever seen in a superhero movie. The Russo brothers know how to stage a fight scene and they make sure that the action is both exciting and visually appealing. The movie is full of memorable set pieces, including the final battle between the Avengers and the Mad Titan Thanos. And overall, it is a masterpiece, a satisfying conclusion to the MCU. It is one of the best superhero movies ever made. The MCU will never be the same after Endgame. Let's go rating it, and I'll give you more details. Okay, so for Avengers Endgame, I'm giving the action 4.5 stars. The action sequences are well choreographed, very exciting, and visually appealing. The Russo brothers do a great job of balancing the humor and the drama in the action set pieces, and they never feel too over the top or ridiculous. Some of the specific action sequences I really enjoy in the movie is from the time travel scene that sets callbacks to the previous MCU movies that became so much exciting. Captain America versus his past self from the first Avengers movie, and then Tokyo scene where Hawkeye became Ronin takeout against multiple Yakuzas, which is very brutal. I really like to see more of that in the future. And then of course, the final battle between all of the Avengers who survived the snap and then back from the snap facing against Thanos and the Black Order became one of the iconic final battles in the MCU, or I would say one of the best battles in the superhero movie history. I will never forget those iconic moments that I ever had in my entire life. Sitting in a packed theater full of audiences cheering at this amazing once-in-a-lifetime experience, that is straight amazing. MCU will never be the same after this. For comedy, I'm giving it 4 stars. The movie has a lot of funny moments, but it also knows when to be serious. The humor is mostly self-aware and it doesn't take itself too seriously. The actors all have great comedic timing and the jokes are well written. Like Thor's depression, Hulk became Smart Hulk, and then Scott Lang, and then the Guardians of the Galaxy's interactions with the other guys. Including Drax. Drax is still funny to this day. For the story, I'm giving it 5 stars. It is a masterfully crafted story that is both satisfying and emotionally resonant. The movie does a great job of juggling so many different characters and storylines, and it keeps the audience engaged from beginning to end. The action is exciting and visually appealing, and the humor is on point. But what really makes the story of Avengers Endgame special is the way it deals with the themes of loss, grief, and redemption. The movie is ultimately a story about hope, and it leaves the audience feeling inspired and uplifted. This is the peak MCU when it comes to the script and storytelling. Why not make more MCU movies like this when it comes to the storytelling? For suspense, I'm giving it 4 stars. The movie does a good job of building tension and keeping the viewer guessing what will happen next. There are several scenes in the movie that are particularly suspenseful, such as the scene where the Avengers going back in time, getting the Infinity Stones from different timelines, and the final battle between the Avengers and Thanos. The movie also does a good job of using humor to relieve the tension, which makes the suspense even more effective. Plus, there are amazing suspense, like the stakes are high as the fate of the universe hangs in a balance, so the viewer is naturally invested in the outcome. And then the characters are in danger, like the time heist, and then the final fight where Thanos is so powerful, and then the plot is unpredictable. The movie does a good job of keeping the viewer guessing what will happen next, and then the pacing is well done. The movie builds tension gradually, and there are several moments where the viewer is on the edge of their seat, and filled with holy shit moments when Thanos showed up. This is the best suspense I've ever had. And lastly, pacing, I'm also giving it 4 stars. The movie is 3 hours long, but it never feels slow or boring. The Russo brothers do a great job of keeping the action moving and the story engaging. There are a few moments where the pacing could have been tightened up, but overall I thought it was very well done. It's very satisfying for the fans of the MCU as it ties up all of the loose ends from previous movies, and it gives closure to the characters that we have come to love. For casual fans in the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 3 ended up, I'm giving it S. For cinephiles, for once-in-a-lifetime experience back then until now, I'm giving it S. And critically, I'm giving it S because it's the highest rated Avengers movie of all time by Rotten Tomatoes and all other critics' websites. Endgame was a satisfying conclusion to the Infinity Saga. It tied up all of the loose ends from previous movies, and it gave closure to the characters, and the movie was also an emotional roller coaster with some truly powerful moments. One of the things that made Endgame so successful was the way it balanced humor and drama. The movie was full of funny moments, but it also had some very serious and emotional scenes. This helped to keep the movie very engaging throughout, and it made the emotional moments even more impactful. Another thing that made Endgame so successful was the way it paid tribute to the past, especially for Stan Lee. The movie was full of references to previous MCU movies, and it even featured some of the original cast members from the first Iron Man film. This helped to make the movie feel like a true combination to the MCU, and it made it a special experience for fans of the franchise. And lastly, Avengers Endgame is a culmination of a decade of storytelling. The Infinity Saga, which began in the first Iron Man film, was a massive undertaking that involved dozens of films and television shows. Endgame was the culmination of all of that storytelling, and it paid off in a big way. Fans were rewarded for their investment in the MCU, and they got to see their favorite characters come together for one final battle. And overall, Avengers Endgame was a masterpiece. It was a satisfying conclusion to the Infinity Saga, and it is one of the best superhero movies ever made in history. From years now, this film might age terribly when it comes to the final act and some of the few storytelling that may come off. Like, I know what you're thinking. Thor, Hulk, and Captain Marvel, in my opinion, they were handled pretty well, even though some key plot points that I found noticeable and missing, they look pretty good to me. And I have to tell you, it is one of the epic phenomenon in the superhero movie media for a number of reasons. It was a culmination of a decade of storytelling, satisfying conclusion to the Infinity Saga. Infinity War had left us on a cliffhanger, and Endgame delivered a conclusion to the story. It featured some of the most iconic superheroes in the world, and it was a technical marvel. The effects were groundbreaking. The action sequences were some of the best I've ever seen in a superhero film thus far. So, Avengers Endgame was a truly epic film that captured the hearts of fans and critics alike. It was a fitting conclusion to the Phase 3 and Infinity Saga, and it will be remembered as one of the best superhero movies ever made. I will forever love this movie alongside Infinity War, whatever it takes. I'm giving it 10 over 10. A closing chapter of the peak MCU that deserves to be more than a Sonic Frozen fan, guaranteed.